Her laughter rang out from inside the house. The same laughter that once felt like the warmest music in my life. Now it cuts like icy blades, slicing deep into my chest. I stood there in the midnight rain, my coat drenched, the air thick with the smell of wet grass and rotting wood. On the porch, a pair of men's slippers, rainwater dripping off them, sitting right next to the shoes I bought her last Christmas. Through the thin curtains, I saw Amanda, the woman I loved more than my own life, resting her head on another man's shoulder. They held each other on the same couch I built with my own hands, in the living room where our wedding photo used to hang. My chest tightened. A cold, sharp pain spread through me. I could feel my whole body trembling. And I asked myself, are all men this foolish? Pouring out their hearts, their youth, their fortune, only to end up like this? I almost walked away. Almost disappeared, like the pathetic man she thinks I am. But then, in that dark, hollow moment, I remembered something. This house is still under my name. Amanda thought she'd taken everything. Our child. This home. She believed the divorce papers sealed it all. But there's one truth she never knew. Even as I signed, I had already set a different plan in motion. 3 minutes from now, they'll lose it all. I took a deep breath, my fingers tightening around the folder in my coat pocket. The papers inside will change everything. This time, I won't stay silent. I stepped onto the porch. Rain hammered down on the roof, masking the sound of my racing heart. Jason, it's time to take back what's yours. You'll probably think I'm a fool for loving someone so deeply I gave up everything. But back then, I wasn't thinking about right or wrong. I just thought a man should do whatever it takes to keep his family whole. My name is Jason Miller. I'm 36, a construction engineer in a small town up in northern Texas. I'm not remarkable. Nothing special about me, except these calloused hands shaped by years of hard work under the sun. But I truly believed that my love and my effort would be enough to hold this home together. I met Amanda 10 years ago on a golden autumn afternoon. I was standing in line for coffee when she bumped into me, spilling her latte across the tiled floor. Flustered, she crouched down to clean it up, her brown hair falling into her face, hiding those nervous eyes. I chuckled, offering her my hand. It's all right. Lucky you didn't burn yourself. We started talking, two strangers at first. But strangely, it felt easy to open up to her. Amanda was a yoga teacher. She loved nature, and she dreamed of a little family with a rose garden out front. As for me, I was just a rookie engineer back then, never even thought about settling down. Not until I met her. 3 years later, we got married. On our wedding day, Amanda wore a pure white dress, her eyes glowing with absolute trust. As she held my hand at the altar, she whispered, "You're the only safe harbor I'll ever need, Jason. All I want is you and Sophie, our little angel." When Amanda gave birth, I was right there, gripping her hand through 12 long hours in that delivery room. And when I heard Sophie's first cry, I had never felt happiness so raw, so overwhelming. That day, I made a promise to myself. I'd give Sophie a life overflowing with love, no matter what it cost me. The first years of our marriage weren't rich, but they were full of laughter. I can still see Sophie crawling across the floor, giggling as Amanda played airplane with her. That image, it's burned into my memory. A moment I once believed would last forever. But forever, turns out, it's a luxury. When Sophie turned 4, Amanda started talking about buying a bigger house. Back then, we were renting a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. But Amanda held my hand, her eyes shimmering. I want Sophie to have a beautiful childhood, a backyard to run around in, a room of her own, where she can dream like every little girl should. Hearing her say that, my heart sank. But I nodded anyway. To afford that house, I sold a small piece of land my parents had left me in the suburbs. A plot I had once dreamed of building a quiet retirement home on. Amanda hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you. Sophie and I are so lucky to have you." That night, as I watched her smiling so brightly, I believed I'd done the right thing. But now, I'm not sure if that smile was ever meant for me, or if it was only for the dream she held in her heart. Our new house sat on the edge of town, a narrow paved road leading to a little garden Amanda fell in love with the moment she saw it. She would often say, "Can you picture it, Jason? Sophie running around the yard, and I'll plant roses all along the front porch. We'll finally have a place to call home." I was never the dreaming type. But when I saw her eyes that day, I wanted so badly to make that dream real. To cover what the bank loan couldn't, I started taking on extra night shifts. There were nights I'd come home at 2 a.m., my shoulders aching so bad I could barely lift my arms. But seeing Sophie asleep in her little pink room, it calmed me. It made me believe every sacrifice was worth it. Sometimes Amanda stayed up late for me, waiting with a cup of ginger tea, listening quietly as I rambled about life on the site. She'd place her hand gently over mine and say, "I know how tired you must be, but we'll get through this, won't we?" And I promised her we would. But then, the little signs started showing. Some nights, the bedroom light went off earlier than usual. The door stayed locked and silent. No more soft voice calling out, "You're home?" I told myself she must have been exhausted, teaching all day, caring for Sophie. So I'd quietly slip into the living room, collapse on the couch, trying not to wake her. But one night, I came home earlier than planned. I heard Amanda laughing behind the bedroom door. A clear, ringing laugh I hadn't heard in a long time. As my hand touched the doorknob, the laughter stopped. Amanda was sitting on the bed, quickly setting her phone down on the nightstand. Her eyes flicked to mine, startled for a split second, then softened into a thin smile. "You're home early." I stood still for a moment, forcing a smile of my own. "Yeah, the project wrapped up ahead of schedule." And in that moment, I wasn't sure if I'd walked into our bedroom or into a strange, unfamiliar space. From that night on, silence started to settle between us. At dinner, Sophie would chatter about her day at preschool, while Amanda and I just nodded, smiled, exchanging small talk like two old acquaintances. I kept telling myself, every marriage goes through phases like this. I just need to try harder. So I worked more, came home less. What I didn't realize was that very distance became the crack where everything started to crumble. Amanda was still gentle. She still cared for Sophie like always. But her eyes, they didn't look at me the way they used to. Some evenings I'd find her by the window, gripping a cold cup of tea, staring blankly out at the rose garden. "Are you okay?" I asked once. She smiled, a thin, hollow smile that sent a chill through me. "I'm fine, just a little tired," and I believed her. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "Jason, something's wrong." If only that night I'd stepped closer. If only I'd looked deeper into her eyes, maybe I would have seen what was coming. It was a Friday night. I left the site earlier than usual. A light rain fell on my way home, droplets clinging to the windshield, blurring the dim yellow streetlights. Inside me stirred a strange feeling, a vague sense of unease, like an itch deep in my chest I couldn't scratch. I didn't call Amanda. I just wanted to surprise her, to come home, hold my wife and daughter, and share a warm dinner after weeks of grinding work. The house was quiet when I opened the door. Amanda's raincoat hung neatly on the rack, her heels placed by the door. Sophie was fast asleep in her room, her breathing soft, like leaves rustling in the wind. I tiptoed toward our bedroom door. A faint glow spilled from the bedside lamp through the crack. Amanda lay on her side, her back to the door. She was on the phone, her voice low, but every word cut through me. "Don't say that. I miss you too. But I can't do anything yet." Jason doesn't suspect a thing. My heart plummeted into my gut. A chill shot up my spine. I froze, my hand gripping the doorknob until it went numb. My breath came hard and fast. My chest felt like it would burst open. "I'll figure it out soon. I just need a little more time." I had to clench my jaw to stop the growl rising in my throat. Part of me wanted to kick the door open, to charge in and scream out the questions tearing through my head. Why, Amanda? What did I do to deserve this? But then, Sophie's sleeping face flashed in my mind. I took a deep breath. My muscles pulled so tight they felt like snapping strings. I couldn't make a scene. Not in front of our little girl. Amanda set her phone down on the nightstand, letting out a long, heavy sigh. I stepped back, quietly closing the door as if I'd never been there. In the living room, I sank into the couch, burying my head in my hands. A sharp pain spread through my chest, down to the tips of my trembling fingers. What did I do wrong? I loved her with everything I had. Worked myself to the bone to give this family the best life I could. And still, she chose someone else. The next morning, Amanda treated me like nothing had changed. She brewed coffee, kissed Sophie on the cheek, then turned to me. Will you be home for dinner tonight? Or stuck at the site again? I forced a smile, hiding my bloodshot eyes from another sleepless night. I'll be home early. Let's have dinner together. She smiled back, that same gentle smile I once fell so deeply for. But now, there was no warmth in it. That evening, after Sophie drifted off to sleep, I sat in the living room waiting for Amanda. When she came out, her hair still damp and smelling of shampoo, I looked her straight in the eyes. Amanda, are you happy? She froze slightly, her eyes blinking fast. That's a strange question. Why wouldn't I be? I kept my voice steady, though it felt like my chest was splitting open. Because sometimes, you don't seem like yourself anymore. If there's something weighing on you, just tell me. Amanda fell silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, sitting down beside me. Jason, I'm tired. Tired of living with someone I don't love anymore. Her words tore through my chest like a blade. And in that moment, I knew I'd just lost the most precious thing in my life. Her words cut through me like a cold blade, sinking deep into my chest. What did you just say? My voice cracked, hoarse and strangled, as if an invisible hand was crushing my throat. Amanda kept her head down, her fingers laced so tightly the knuckles turned white. A single tear rolled down her cheek, splashed on the back of her trembling hand. Jason, I'm sorry. I tried. I really did. But I don't feel it anymore. When I look at you, I see a good friend. A wonderful father. But not the man I love. My heart felt like it exploded inside my chest. There's someone else, isn't there? The words scraped out through clenched teeth. Amanda's body quivered. Then she nodded. Her small shoulders sagged, like she'd finally set down a heavy burden. He makes me feel alive again. Like myself. No more pretending. No more feeling alone. Like I did with you. I shot to my feet. My whole body shook, fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. What about Sophie? What do you plan to do with her? What has she ever done to deserve this? My voice cracked, breaking like a lost child clinging to the last thing holding him together. Amanda wiped her tears, her voice a fragile whisper. I'm not trying to take her father away from her. I just want to follow my heart. I let out a laugh, a dry, hollow sound that echoed through the heavy silence of the room. Follow your heart? And what about me, Amanda? What about the 10 years of my youth I poured into building this family? What about your wedding vows? Amanda broke down, sobbing into her hands, as if trying to hide from the whole world. That night, I sat alone on the porch. The rain had stopped, but droplets still fell from the roof, tapping softly on the wooden steps. In my hand was my wedding ring, cold and lifeless. It used to stand for forever, for a promise unbroken. But now, it felt as cold as Amanda's eyes tonight. I loved her with everything I had, and for what? The next morning, Amanda packed a few bags. She said she needed time to think. She took Sophie to her mother's house, wanting to shield our little girl from the heavy air in the home. I stood there silent, watching their car disappear around the bend, my chest hollow, like someone had carved my heart out and left nothing behind. 3 days later, I still hadn't left the empty house when my phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. I want to talk. We need to sort out the paperwork and custody for Sophie. My hands trembled. The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. Then came another message. A hammer blow to the skull. He wants to marry me, and I think I'm going to say yes. A cold numbness spread through my body. The air thickened around me, so heavy I could barely breathe. Maybe I didn't lose her to that man. Maybe I lost her a long time ago. And this foolish heart of mine just refused to admit it. The house was silent. The only sound was the ticking clock, echoing in the cold, empty space. On the table, a cup of coffee sat untouched, its warmth long gone. I sat there, staring into nothing, my fingers gripping the wedding ring so tightly it left deep marks in my skin. Amanda had texted me. She wanted to meet, to talk about the paperwork and custody of Sophie. Those words kept repeating in my head like a hammer pounding against my skull. Each blow cracked my heart a little more. Paperwork, custody. I never imagined this day would come. The day the woman I once believed would walk with me to the end would sit across from me, discussing who our child should belong to. We met at a quiet cafe, the same place where we had our first date. Amanda sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a latte she barely touched, her eyes darting away like she couldn't bear to look at the man who once meant the world to her. Jason, I don't want this to get ugly. Sophie needs stability. You can see her anytime you want. Her voice trembled, each word slicing through me like a blade. I stared into her eyes, the same eyes that once sparkled as she said, "You're the only safe harbor I'll ever need." Now, they were still. Cold. Not a ripple left for me. Sophie is our daughter. You have no right to take her from her father. My voice was low, steady. But under the table, my fists were clenched so tight, my nails dug into my palms. Amanda bit her lip, tears streaking down her cheeks. Jason, I'm not trying to take her from you. But Ryan, he can give me and Sophie the home we deserve. He wants to marry me. Her words hit me like a knife to the chest. I swallowed the pain, forcing it down my throat, but my voice still cracked. And Sophie? You're planning to have her call him what? Daddy? Amanda sobbed, her voice shaking. Please try to understand. Sophie deserves a complete family. Ryan can give her that. I let out a dry, hollow laugh that echoed in the empty cafe. A complete family? What about me, Amanda? 10 years I loved you. 10 years I laid every single brick for that house. Was that not a family? Amanda stood and left, leaving me alone at the table. The cup of coffee before me was still full. Its warmth had faded long ago, just like the warmth in our marriage. I bowed my head, shoulders trembling. Not from the cold, but from the pain clawing at my chest. In this game, the one who loves more is always the loser. 3 days later, Amanda moved into the house with Ryan. I stood outside in the rain, beneath the dripping branches, watching through the window. Ryan held Sophie in his arms, and Amanda smiled softly, the same smile that once belonged to me, now given fully to another man. My fingers tightened around the folder in my coat pocket. That house, it's still under my name. Amanda doesn't know. They think I've lost everything, but they don't realize. With just one signature, everything can change. I stood in the rain, staring through the window of the house that used to be our home. Ryan held Sophie in his arms. Amanda stood beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. She smiled, the same smile that once belonged to me. Now, Elijah. Now, it was his. My chest tightened, a sharp, crushing pain stealing the air from my lungs. My fingers trembled as they clutched the folder in my coat pocket. The papers inside felt as cold as my heart did at that moment. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ticking clock echoed in the dark, each second pounding against my skull like a hammer. I walked into the bedroom, the room where Amanda used to wrap her arms around me from behind and whisper, "You're the only safe harbor I'll ever need." On the desk, our old wedding photo still lay there. I picked it up, my hand shaking as my finger traced over our faces, eyes that once burned with happiness, smiles that seemed to hold the whole world. A sob broke loose from my throat. I turned the frame over, too weak to look at it any longer. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my lawyer. "Mr. Miller, the house deed is still under your name. Unless you sign it over, they can't make a move." I gripped the phone tight, my voice dropping low. "Thank you. I know what I have to do." That afternoon, I went back to the house. Amanda answered the door, her eyes widening for a brief second when she saw me. Ryan stood behind her, holding Sophie. When Sophie's big, bright eyes landed on me, they lit up. "Daddy!" she cried out, reaching her little arms toward me. My heart shattered. I wanted to run to her, to hold her tight and never let go. But my legs felt heavy, rooted to the floor as I saw Amanda's cold gaze, colder than the rain outside. Amanda gently pulled Sophie back, her voice trembling. "Sophie, let Daddy talk to Mommy and Uncle Ryan for a moment, okay?" Sophie nodded softly, but her eyes stayed locked on mine as Ryan carried her into the room. I stepped inside, my wet shoes leaving dark stains on the wooden floor. Sitting down, I placed the folder on the table, my eyes fixed on Amanda. "Amanda, this house is still under my name." She froze, her hands clutching at the hem of her shirt. "Jason, what are you trying to do?" I let out a bitter smile. "I'm not doing anything. I just wanted to remind you. The thing you thought was yours is still mine." Ryan stepped forward, his voice tense. "Don't make this harder for Amanda. Leave her alone. We'll take care of Sophie." I stared him down, my voice dropping to a low growl. "You think you can replace me? You think money alone will make Sophie call you Daddy?" Ryan stayed silent, his fists clenched tight, knuckles white. I stood, turning to leave. But before stepping out, I looked at Amanda one last time. "I won't take this house from you. But don't forget, Sophie is my daughter. And I'll never lose her, the way I lost you." The door shut behind me. I stood still on the porch, the smell of wet grass and rotting wood drifting through the cold wind. And in the quiet, a voice whispered inside me, "They think I've fallen. But soon, they'll see who I really am. A man who's lost everything is the most dangerous kind." I stood outside the courthouse, the early winter wind cutting across my face, cold enough to numb me to the bone. Inside, there was no more anger. Only a hollow space in my chest, a deep void slowly swallowing me whole. This morning, my lawyer asked me a question. "Are you sure, Jason? If you give up ownership of the house, they'll hold all the cards." I nodded slightly. "I don't care about the house. I just need Sophie. Help me win custody of my daughter." The courtroom was packed. Amanda sat across from me, her eyes red and swollen, but her lips pressed tight, like someone who had prepared for this moment long ago. Ryan sat beside her, his large hand gripping hers, his calm, steady gaze grating on me like sandpaper. Their lawyer spoke at length, about income, about material stability, about the best environment for Sophie. I sat silently, my hands clasped under the table, fingernails digging so deep into my palms they drew blood. Then it was my turn. I stood up. My legs trembled slightly, but my voice came out deep and steady. "Your Honor, I'm not as wealthy as he is. I don't have a brand new house or a thriving company. But I do have a heart that will never abandon my daughter, not even when I've lost everything else. If I had to choose between everything in this world and Sophie, I would choose her. Every time." Without hesitation, the room fell silent. I took a deep breath, my eyes turning to Amanda. Her gaze wavered, lashes trembling slightly. Then Ryan let out a dry laugh, cutting through the stillness like a knife. "And what kind of home can you offer Sophie? An overworked father? An empty house? And broken promises?" His words stabbed deep into my chest, twisting like a blade. My hands clenched tight, hot blood rushing to my head. Suddenly, Amanda's voice broke the tension. Soft. Fragile. But every word hit me like a hammer. "Jason, Sophie has started calling Ryan Daddy. I'm sorry, but she needs a stable family." My heart stopped cold. The sounds around me faded into nothingness. All I could hear was Sophie's voice in my memory. "Daddy, Daddy, I love you." It felt like the world crumbled beneath my feet. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing my voice to stay calm. "You can have Amanda. You can have the house. But Sophie is my daughter. And I will not lose her, the way I've lost everything else." And in that moment, I realized something. I thought I was fighting to win her back, but I never understood. This fight was far more brutal than I ever imagined. The hearing was over. The court's decision, temporary custody, would come in 2 weeks. I stepped out of the courtroom, my legs heavy as if weighed down by stones. Amanda was standing there, Ryan's arm draped over her shoulders like a shield. Sophie clung to Ryan's leg, her wide, innocent eyes looking at me, completely unaware of the storm swirling around her. I took a step closer. "Sophie, come here to Daddy." She turned to Amanda, then to Ryan. Neither of them said a word. But in Ryan's eyes, there was a flash of cold steel. Sophie hesitated for a moment, then shook her head softly. "I want to stay with Mommy and Uncle Ryan." My chest tightened, a sharp pain shooting through me like a fist crushing my heart. I knelt down, bringing myself to her level, forcing my voice to stay calm. "All right, but Daddy will always be here, Sophie. Whenever you need me, I'll be there." Amanda pulled Sophie close. But before they turned away, Ryan spoke, his voice sharp, each word cutting deep. "You know the difference between you and me, Jason? I don't just love Sophie. I make her feel safe. If you really love her, let her grow up in peace." His words twisted like a knife in my chest. I bowed my head, shoulders trembling as the pain roared inside me. Maybe he's right. Loving a child isn't about holding on at all costs. Sometimes it's about letting go so they can be happy. 3 days later, Amanda called me. "Jason, Sophie wants to see you." My heart stirred. But then her voice lowered, heavy with warning. "If you keep fighting, we'll move out of state. And you'll lose any chance of seeing her again." The next day, I went to Sophie's preschool. I stood at a distance, watching her laugh and play on the playground. Ryan stood nearby, taking pictures of her with his phone. Then Sophie looked up. Her bright blue eyes met mine through the fence. They widened. "Daddy!" She ran towards me, her little arms reaching out. I knelt down, pulling her into my chest. Her warmth made my heart ache so bad I could barely breathe. "Did you miss Daddy?" "I did. Daddy, why don't you live with me anymore?" I hugged her tighter, hiding my tear-filled eyes in her soft hair. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but Daddy will always love you. Always." Ryan approached, his voice tight as a wire. "Jason, it's time for you to let her go." I looked up at him, my eyes burning red. "You think a piece of paper can strip me of being her father?" Ryan clenched his fists, then exhaled and softened his tone. "No, Jason. But you're stripping Sophie of a peaceful childhood." I looked down at Sophie one last time, my breath catching in my chest. Her small hand clung to mine, trembling. "Daddy, don't go." Maybe being her hero isn't about holding on. Maybe it's learning to let go, so she can be happy. 3 days passed. The house had grown so quiet, it felt almost alive, breathing in memories, but empty of warmth. The picture frames still hung on the walls, but the laughter that once filled this place was long gone. I sat motionless on the old sofa, my fingers gripping the cold wedding ring. On the table, a faint coffee stain marked the last trace of warmth that ever existed here. This house used to be a home. Now it's nothing more than an empty box, echoing with memories. My phone rang. Amanda. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Jason, I know you're angry, but we need to talk." Her voice was tired, soft. None of the icy sharpness from our last encounter. I agreed to meet her at a quiet park, the same place where Sophie used to ride the swings as a little girl. Amanda arrived first, sitting on a stone bench, her hair falling over her face, hiding almost half of it. Ryan stood nearby, his hands buried in his coat pockets, his eyes wary as I approached. I sat down, keeping my distance. "What do you want to say?" My voice came out hoarse, worn from too many sleepless nights. Amanda looked up, her red, swollen eyes trembling. Jason, I'm sorry. I never wanted it to come to this. But I truly believe this is what's best for Sophie. I let out a dry, hollow laugh. Best for her? You mean tearing her away from her father? Forcing her to grow up in a family she never chose? Ryan stepped closer, placing a hand on Amanda's shoulder. His eyes locked on mine, cold and unflinching. You used to be her hero, Jason. But now, you're just a shadow. She flinches at when she remembers. His words sliced deep, twisting in my chest like a blade. In my mind, I saw Sophie burying her face in Amanda's shoulder, her tiny body trembling. I stared straight into Ryan's eyes, forcing each word out through clenched teeth. You can buy everything, but not the love of a father. Ryan didn't blink. His voice dropped low, weighted with quiet fury. Then where was that love, Jason? When Sophie cried herself to sleep every night. Because you weren't there? My head dropped. My hands shook. My throat tightened, choking back words I couldn't bring myself to say. Maybe losing a family isn't the scariest thing. Maybe the real terror is realizing you helped break it apart. Amanda sobbed quietly, burying her face in her frail hands. I thought I was the victim, but Ryan's words hit me like a hammer. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd been the one, causing the pain all along. I sat still, my eyes fixed on Sophie playing on the swing just a few feet away. Her laughter danced in the wind, pure and light like a mountain stream. But to me, every sound cut through my chest like a blade. She's still smiling, but I know deep in those bright eyes, there's a sadness I helped create. Amanda drew a shaky breath, her red, swollen eyes meeting mine, her voice trembling. Jason, I won't deny I made mistakes. But have you ever stopped to ask why I walked away? My fists clenched tight, fingernails digging so deep into my palms they broke skin. I gave you everything. I worked day and night. I sacrificed it all, just so you and Sophie could have a better life. Amanda broke down, her sobs spilling out in ragged gasps. I know, but Jason, I never needed you to bring home money. I needed you to be there, to listen to me, to see me, to love me, like you did in the beginning. Ryan stood nearby, silent for a long moment before his voice cut in, low, heavy, each word landing like a hammer. You thought you were Sophie's hero. But every night, she cries herself to sleep, because she misses you. She misses the father who once held her tight and promised he'd never leave. You call that love? His words struck like a sledgehammer to my chest. I lowered my head, fighting back the tears that burned in my eyes. Maybe I loved in a way that left the ones I cared for, feeling utterly alone. Sophie ran over, her bright blue eyes sparkling. Daddy, pick me up! I dropped to my knees, pulling her into my arms, feeling her soft little body trembling against me. Did you miss Daddy? I did. Daddy, don't leave again, okay? I'll be good. I promise. My heart tightened like a vice. I drew in a long, ragged breath, every cell in my body breaking apart. My little girl, sometimes Daddy can't keep his promises. But I'll love you every single day, until the day I take my last breath. Amanda turned away, wiping her tears. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. This time, when his eyes met mine, there was no hostility, only a quiet understanding between two men who once stood on opposite sides of a battlefield. I stood up, my hands trembling as I let go, even though Sophie clung desperately to my shirt. Daddy has to go now, but whenever you miss me, close your eyes and say my name. Daddy will always hear you. Sophie burst into tears, her tiny hands gripping mine tight. Daddy, don't go. I'll be good, I promise. I held her hand for one last second, then let go and turned away. I thought losing my family was the worst pain I could ever feel. But it wasn't. It was pushing my own daughter away, and realizing that was hell. I sat quietly on the old sofa. The house was just as silent as it had been for the past 3 weeks. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, spilling across the wooden floor, casting a warm golden hue over the scratches of time. But to me, It all felt cold. The wedding ring still sat on the table, as cold and lifeless as the day I picked it up after court. I'd tried to put it away more than once, but every time, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Since that day, I haven't seen Amanda or Sophie. Every night, I leave my phone on the nightstand, hoping for a message, a call, anything. But the screen stays dark, silent, just like my heart. I miss Sophie. I miss the way her little voice called out, "Daddy!" in the middle of the playground. I miss the way her tiny hands clung to my shirt, refusing to let go. Maybe loving a child isn't about keeping them close. Maybe it's about letting them grow up in peace, even if that means growing up without you. That night, I sat in the pitch-black living room. The lights were off. The whole room drowned in silence, except for the ticking of the clock, a constant reminder of every moment I've lost. I buried my face in my hands, and the loneliness hit like a violent wave. My body trembled. My chest ached as if someone was crushing my heart. I used to want to smash everything, but in the end, I just collapsed, holding myself, and cried like a child. The next morning, I stepped out onto the porch and froze. A small envelope lay neatly on the step. Inside was a drawing. Sophie had drawn a man and a little girl standing side by side. Above it, in messy handwriting, were the words, "Daddy, I love you. I'll wait for you at the park." I pressed the drawing to my chest. For the first time in days, the tears came, quiet, falling down my sunken face, like rain on parched earth. That evening, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat on the porch. The night breeze was cool, carrying the scent of damp grass and the soft hum of crickets. I whispered to myself, "Jason, you've lost everything. But you still have one chance to be the kind of father Sophie can be proud of." For the first time, I looked straight into the loneliness that had consumed me. No more fighting it. No more bitterness. Only a strange calm, like a lake after the storm. Maybe to truly love someone, you first have to learn to love yourself. Tomorrow, I'll go to the park. Not to take anything back, but to keep a promise to my little girl. Daddy will always be there, whenever you need me.